Hi everybody, welcome back to our next Lunch and Learn. It's been a while, but we are here in Bloor West Village. The boundaries, as always, Bloor Street to the south, Jane Street behind me to the west. I'll say just past Runnymede on the east, and I'll also say Annette Street is to the north, because in my opinion, once you're north of Annette Street, it's kind of more the junction area. So much of Bloor West Village, it's made up of the estate of British Lieutenant Colonel William Dury, and he owned property here in the 1850s. Dury Street, which we're standing on right here, it was initially a path running through his estate. Bloor West Village, it went through an immense change when the Toronto Suburban Railway was built in the late 1800s. And at the time, the area was known as the city of West Toronto. The residents, they were mainly Irish and English, and a large part of the community worked in the railway. When the railway began operating, landowners began to subdivide their properties. One named John Scarlett, and you know him from Scarlett Road fame, he was one of the first to develop his land, and he named his estate Runnymede. Runnymede Road was built by him, and it was originally a road that led to his estate. In 1909, the area was annexed by the City of Toronto. Now, the City of West Toronto, it contained parts of what's now Bloor West Village and the Junction. And this annexation resulted in new city services and rapid growth. Most of the buildings currently along the commercial strip of Bloor were built between 1920 and 1930. And this Shoppers Drug Mart behind me, beautiful building, it was built in 1927 and it was the Runnymede Theatre. The creation of Bloor Street, it clearly had a significant influence on the area. Originally, Bloor Street was Highway 5, and it went from Kingston Road in Toronto's East End, and it went all the way to Paris, Ontario. And it was named after Joseph Bloor, who was a brewer, and he founded Yorkville in 1830, and we had that in an earlier video. In 1912, the City of Toronto, it wanted to stimulate growth, so they built streetcar lines along Bloor Street. And in 1914, an arrangement was made with the city, with a local railway that serviced the area to do the job. Before this, Bloor West, it was a narrow dirt road, and there were two deep ravines, one at Keele Street and the other right here at Runnymede. It took 3 years for the ravines to be filled, and in 1917, the streetcar line opened. In 1921, under the newly found Toronto Transit Commission, the route was renamed Bloor West, and service was extended all the way to Jane Street. In 1948, post-World War II, the first wave of Eastern Europeans settled in Bloor West. They were largely displaced people from the war who arrived here without many possessions, but they did arrive with a lot of employable skills, and they were drawn to the area because the employment opportunities existed. Bloor West, it was home to many industries, including Ontario's meatpacking industry, and there were many opportunities for building trades like roofers and plumbers, painters, etc. Eastern European influence, it still is present in many of the bakeries, delis, and other businesses here. And in the 1960s, there was a wave of Ukrainians that settled here and helped contribute to the creation of a vibrant commercial strip that we have right here. Since 1995, Bloor West Village, it has hosted the annual Ukrainian Festival in order to showcase Ukrainian culture. And it's the largest Ukrainian festival in North America. In 1966, a subway was built along Bloor. Now, the original plan was to build it along Queen Street, but the suburbs, they were rapidly developing, and Bloor Street was deemed a better choice. So in 1968, the subway service was extended from Keele to Islington along Bloor, right through Bloor West. Now, the shift from streetcars to subways, it became a cause of concern for the businesses in the main strip here. It allowed people to travel distances to do their shopping and not shop locally. So some of the business owners, they tried to get donations to fund improvements to the area, but only a few people were willing to contribute. Now, the business owners, they then went to the city to enact legislation that would allow businesses in the area to collect a levy. And this levy was to be collected by the City of Toronto, and an elected board would decide how the money would be spent. So in 1970, the legislation was enacted and Bloor West Village Business Improvement Area became the world's first BIA. Bloor West at the time had 275 merchants, and there were a lot of vacant lots, like used car lots, there were 6 gas stations, there was even an abandoned streetcar terminal amongst the retail mix. The success of the BIA, it transformed those underdeveloped lots, enhancing the strip even further. There's currently 77 BIAs in Toronto, and the idea is now used globally. Bloor West Village, it was also dry, and that meant there were no alcohol sales up until the 1990s. In the early 1900s, it was the Christian Temperance Union that was the force opposing the sale of alcohol. This ban held up until early 90s, And when it was discovered that the border of the alcohol ban was right down the middle of Bloor Street, the ban only applied to the north side of the street. So suddenly, licensed restaurants, they were opening on the south side. And the rash of liquor license, it upset the residents. And it resulted in a bylaw that limited the size of new restaurants to about 2,100 square feet. The success of the bylaw in limiting the restaurant size is evident in the vibrancy and variety and the number of thriving restaurants and bars along Bloor Street. So now let's go check one out. Okay, we're here on Bloor West. We're here at Janchenko Bakery, and I'm not going to shill for anything in particular, really. Like, there's so many great places to eat here. There's a ton of coffee shops, and we stopped in a bakery. Joelle got a pickled soup. I got a Polish sausage. We got great baked goods. So when you're down here, Janchenko Bakery, come on. The majority of the homes in Bloor West Village, they're detached houses. Now, if I base it just on sales, I'd say 75% are detached and 25% are semis. But if you kind of eyeball it, you think that they're way more detached than that. Many were built in the early part of the 20th century, especially between 1915 and 1925. And they feature craftsman and Tudor architecture. They often sit on pretty decent sized lots. They have features like large front porches, and pretty much every house here has that. Hardwood floors, fireplaces. Some of them have really great wood trim and brick facades. So pricing. So let's just talk about the last 6 months. Detached, I'd say as low as 1.2 to 3 million plus, but they're generally in the 1.5 to 2.5 range. Semis, 900 for, say, a fixer-upper, and something really nice could go for 1.7. And condos, there really aren't any in the neighborhood. There is a townhouse complex on Jane Street north of Annette, but as I said, it's more Junction. Anyhow, I love doing these videos. Like, share, and we'll talk soon.